Constructing your life is about much more than just building a bank account. Each week, join real estate entrepreneur and mindset coach Austin Linney as he interviews guests who are constructing their dream lives and impacting the world around them on a daily basis. If you're an entrepreneur or wanting to start a business, or you just want to hear motivating stories of how others have overcome the odds, you are in the right place. And now for your host, Austin Linney.
Guys, welcome back to Construct Your Life. This is Austin Linney here, and in true Construct Your Life fashion, somebody sends me an email, we get connected, we haven't spoken, we haven't done any of those things, so I get to learn along with y'all. We have Mr. Alex Wells here. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, man, and I love it. I'm so excited. So what I like to do with my guests is let them start their story where they want to, and then we'll go from there.
Cool. Yeah, that sounds good. So I'll kind of start off just by saying I am the CEO and co-founder at Imprint Digital. We are a digital marketing agency based out of Colorado. We service businesses all over the country. But really, our whole philosophy, we've been in business for about a year and a half. I started the business with my partner, Bobby Shell. And both of us came from working at a really big digital marketing agency for about 10 years each. And we kind of set out onto our own journey in the summertime of 2021. And we were just really curious on what else was out there. Him and I are good friends. He actually introduced me to my wife. And we established a really amazing connection and working together and just developing that friendship, which in the process spurred the fact that we were both interested in entrepreneurship. And so we just started getting into discussions about what was out there and how we could find investment opportunities and businesses and things that we could get involved with each other. And shortly after we left, we started to have people reach out to us just to see what we could do to help them out with digital marketing, just based on our reputation. And so since we were already in discussions and in trying to find other ventures to get involved with together, we decided, why don't we make a way to help these people out? And it fits really well in our skill set, obviously, with the experience that we bring to the table. And so we decided to start this business. But in the process of that, we really wanted to kind of take away what we enjoyed and what we felt like businesses really needed, and to remove what we felt like probably was kind of expiring as far as the business model goes. And what that really looks like for us is we are trying to bridge the gap between what it would be like to hire somebody internally at your business and contracting those services out. And so we're really trying to take a white glove, tight-knit approach to the relationships and the strategy and working with these businesses, and make it feel like we're actually a part of your team. And so I think of it a lot like a talent agency, but instead of just hiring for one position, like let's say you go out and you hire like a fractional CMO or something like that. Typically what that looks like is you hire the person, they come into your organization, and you probably have some preconceived notions or expectations as to what that person's going to be able to do. Bobby and I actually both experienced that initially when we first left. We both took kind of like fractional CMO type of jobs. And what we found is that the digital marketing landscape of what people think it is and what it actually is are very different in a lot of cases. And so sometimes when people go out and they hire somebody for that role, they get into the organization and they start observing things and making recommendations as to what they should do. And usually that involves hiring a team. And sometimes those businesses don't really plan on that financially. They're like, hey, you're going to come in, you're going to take care of everything, right? And then they start talking about, well, we need a designer, and we need a developer, and we need a social media manager, and we need somebody to do video, and we need all these different skill sets, right? And sometimes that can cause some friction within the organization, because it's like, whoa, wait a minute, I thought you were going to be able to handle all this stuff. And so by hiring us, we are that fractional CMO or CGO or CRO, right, for your organization. except for we have the whole team already, right? So you can really get what you planned for, right, for a fraction of what it would cost you to hire everybody internally. And then we'll plug in, we'll come into your company meetings, we'll be in your Slack channels, all of that stuff, right? And so we're really trying to take a different approach with that and help businesses in this time where I feel like innovation is rampant. We're seeing a huge boom in businesses starting up and just technology accelerating forward. And I think a lot of businesses need that in their organization. And so that's what we're really trying to do with that.
Yeah, it's interesting. Our CFO that we hired for our private equity firm is partial, fractional, and it's becoming more of a thing. I've done it myself as a consultant, as a CEO. I think, that is, I would say that's the bigger issue when you look at marketing and branding, which is kind of my forte with my clients, is like, it's ever changing so much. The channel to be on changes every 5 months. And if you're in a company and you're dealing with all this other day-to-day stuff, it's really going to be hard for you to keep up with the trends. And that's why hiring a company such as yourself makes so much more sense, because it's your job to stay up with the trends.
Yeah, exactly. Like we're already here. We're ready to go. We're bobbing and weaving through all these changes on a day-to-day basis, and we really understand the landscape too. A great example of what you're talking about is I feel like there's been a huge evolution in the website aspect of businesses over the course of last 3 to 5 years, where you started to see these companies like Squarespace and Wix and these type of managed platforms offer a way to build websites in a way that was simplified, right? And as a business owner, you're like, oh yeah, like I would love to be able to go in and be able to drag and drop and make changes on my own website and stuff like that. And so I feel like that kind of got some steam and popularity. But what we've seen in that landscape specifically over the last year really is the fact that like that's not necessarily the best way to do it, right? It sounds good in theory, but the truth is that if you build your website on those platforms, they own your website, right? You are not the owner of that website. They own it. And if you're ever in a position where you want to rebuild or migrate the website over to another platform, it's almost impossible to get everything moved over. I mean, you're essentially put in a position where you have to kind of copy and rebuild onto a new platform. And the other thing too is with cybersecurity, there has just been a huge influx in cyber attacks online, and it's becoming a bigger and bigger thing. And so if you kind of take the security offering that your website gets on those types of platforms and you look at it, it's definitely not, I think, the way that things are moving. And the reality is you really should always make sure as a business owner that you own your data, you own your assets, right? And that you're not stuck in that position where you're kind of handcuffed to something like that. And so we're really trying to help businesses with understanding those kinds of details that you just might not really be completely up to date on, and you don't have time to keep up with and stuff like that. And I can tell you, we've helped a huge handful of businesses, and it seems to be more and more common, move off of those platforms to something that they actually own.
There's a couple points I want to hit on, because I think marketing and digital media is such an interesting topic. I think the first thing is that business owners need to look at marketing as an investment, not a cost.
Correct.
That's the first thing, right? If you're, like perfect example, I hired 15 people in the last 5 weeks for my plumbing and HVAC company, and we hired a marketing team who specializes in HVAC plumbing. So all those things were cost, but 80% of those people that I hired make me revenue, and they're going to bring in revenue. So I'm totally comfortable in putting the investment there. I think as a business owner, you have to look at the players on your team and say, maybe I have too many people that are hitting the bottom line, but they're not creating revenue. Is that what you see in your clients too, is trying to change that mindset when it comes to marketing and investing in digital marketing?
Absolutely. We have that conversation
Every
probably more
client,
often.
probably.
Yeah, more often than we'd like to. It's one of those things where the in the marketing world, what
Well,
we've
it's also,
really become.
it's hard because sometimes you can't you
Yeah,
can't give them an ROI because it's about brand.
yeah, yeah. You're spot on with that. It's we've become consultants in a lot of ways. Um, it's when you have had a chance to work in marketing for as long as we have, you've had a chance to see so many different types of businesses and work with so many organizations. You get knowledge that I think is completely irreplaceable, and something that a lot of people don't really get the chance to absorb in their career. And that really has put us in the consultant seat a lot in working with businesses. And so we'll have to have those kinds of conversations of like, okay, so how do you think about marketing? You're looking at this monthly payment, right? And you're thinking, oh, it's on my expense sheet. But the reality is that when it comes to marketing, it is like, we often say that we print money at a discount, right? You're investing. It is an investment. You might be paying for it monthly, but the reality is that monthly payment in making sure that all of these things are being taken care of and they're consistent and that you're keeping up with the trends that are going on. That's an opportunity to be able to generate revenue in your business, right? Almost like a loan. You give us the money and you make it back. I mean, essentially, we're just collecting interest on your growth as an organization. And so we have that kind of conversation all the time. And to spin off that, the other piece of it as well, in this conversation of having to build the team, the marketing team, right? We have the conversation a lot about trying to break down what that actually is and comparing it, right? So like you hire an internal employee, right? Or you go and let's say you buy groceries, right? When you're going to the grocery store or you're hiring an employee, when you are getting that service, right? Somebody's checking out your groceries. That person has a salary or an hourly wage or something that's associated with them that's taking care of that work for you. Same goes if you hire an employee, right? Like you hire somebody to go and let's say you're hiring an HVAC tech for your business, right? You have to pay that person, right? So the reality is that when you think about digital marketing and you're like, okay, well, you have a marketing director, you have a graphic designer, you have a social media manager, and you start to go out and do a little bit of research on those average salaries and stuff like that. And you're like, okay, so I'm hiring you, the digital marketing company. You're having this many people work for me, and you're having to pay those people, right? All I'm paying you is that monthly cost, right? I'm not really thinking about it as, hey, so this person has a wage and this person has a wage and this person has a wage and how much it actually costs you to do that service for me effectively, right? And having those kinds of conversations too.
Well, I read a book and I haven't finished it. I probably should, but I kind of put it down after I heard it kind of set it home for me. It's called Design to Scale. It's talking about business. And it was saying that like every company, especially a large company, should have two marketing departments. There's two marketing departments. There's a brand department, and then there's a short-term ROI marketing department. And that was like it really illuminated something to me because, basically if you look at me as a brand, my personal brand, like the podcast is my brand awareness at all times. And then there's short-term ROIs, which is talking to schools, talking to groups of people, going to masterminds, going to conferences, et cetera, et cetera. The Instagram, the Twitter, the YouTube, the podcast, it's kind of like your digital resume of if you're full of crap or not, to be honest with you. Most people, even I hire company, here's what's wild to me, and this is how it really hits home. And you can use this story for your clients for moving forward. So we've got 3 businesses under contract in the last 8 months that we're buying, right? And we'll scale these businesses to, it doesn't matter what we're scaling, they're going to go high, right?
Mhm.
Every buyer that I contacted with, the first time they found my name out, they went right to my website and my social media channels and checked me out.
Yeah.
So when we go create $100 million of revenue, how important is that website I built 3 years ago? Right? How important is it to keep up with that? How important is the 5,000, the 500 podcasts I've done of me saying the same thing, being consistently myself? And I really think that's what a lot of people don't think about. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't either until like the buyers would like mention it out of the blue. And I'm like, whoa, like, and so like I went back and I like made sure my LinkedIn was dialed in and everything. And I'm like, okay, that was like a really aha moment to me to understand that every like digital footprint matters, right? Even my masseuse was like, man, I looked you up the other day and like you're everywhere. And I'm like, he's like, who am I massaging? I'm like, dude, I'm just me. But like it's just
Mhm.
wild to me. I don't think enough people think about the footprint, right?
Yeah, yeah. It's we have that conversation a lot too. So the way that we approach that is really, if a business contacts us and they're like, hey, I found you guys, looks like you guys really know what you're doing, I need digital marketing. And maybe they have in their mind a piece of that puzzle that they feel like they need the most. And the main one that often comes up is ads, right? Business will come to us and they'll be like, I really, really, really need to grow my revenue, right? I'm having a hard time putting a cost to your service. I need an ROI. And what that oftentimes makes them think about is, if I can get some ads running, I'm going to get some sales.
Mhm,
And then what we'll have to talk about is, what have you been doing?
mhm,
Right?
mhm,
Because one of the biggest mistakes you can make in your digital marketing strategy is going ads first.
mhm,
Because if you don't have a brand out there, if you haven't been consistent on social media, if people can't find you at all, if people have never seen you before, if you haven't done anything to build trust from people and you go out there and run ads, that's a good way to go in the negative quick, because people are going to respond to your ads better if they know who you are,
mhm,
if you built trust, right? And you focused on marketing your brand well, right? Then they see the ad and they're like, oh yeah, I've seen these guys consistently.
mhm,
They seem like they know what they're doing, right? See the ad, the
mhm,
service or the product is needed, they're going to be more likely to buy. And so we always really want to make sure that we're laying that foundation on the brand marketing side
mhm,
first, right? Don't even start ads yet, right? Get that going, get that consistent, make sure that you have a good strategy for that in place. And then you introduce the ads and you're more likely to see an ROI, right? Ads are a supplement to your marketing strategy, not the main factor, right? Like if it's
mhm.
fitness, it's like you could go out and exercise all the time, but if you're going to McDonald's every day, how are you going to see results? So your brand marketing is like your diet, right? And then you introduce your consistent fitness, and then supplementation, right? Making sure that you fill in the gaps with your ads then at that point.
So I'm a business owner, and 9 times out of 10, this is what I see from the guys that we'll buy from. I'm a
Mhm.
business owner. I'm managing all the employees. I'm worried about this. I'm lawyer and contracts, and marketing. I would say is probably the last thing they ever think about, if not any, right?
Mhm.
Especially if they have business already. So where would you suggest that a business owner or anybody that's thinking about getting started, where would they start, and kind of how do you see it to break it down easy for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So that's a great question, and it's really what we pride ourselves on, because over the course of a year and a half, we've been able to grow from 0 to 13 employees. We're in a good position here, hopefully, to be able to hit 1 million in revenue in just 2 calendar years, and we've done all of that with 0 ads.
Mhm.
right? We have yet to introduce ads into our own marketing. We immediately first started on other things. And that's what a business owner should do. If you're thinking about marketing, what you should really be thinking about is how can you put yourself in the best position possible to generate an ROI on your marketing. And the best way to do that is to start on your low cost options first, right? And so where I always start, if we ever have somebody reach out to us and they're thinking they're really, really cost conscious, I'll honestly tell them, hey, maybe it's not the right time to immediately start putting money and investing in digital marketing, right? Because you don't really have a consistent revenue stream. You don't really seem like you're prepared to have cash out. You don't have enough cash coming in. And so what you should always really start with is you should start with networking and a very strategic bootstrap approach of getting out there, boots on the ground, knocking on doors, putting up door hangers, going to local events, having conversations with people and getting your name out there, right? Because that's just your time, right? And you'd be surprised by showing up consistently at places where people are who are going to need your service. They see your face, they talk to you, you have conversations. All of a sudden you end up with numbers in your phone and a stack of business cards, right? And then you gave out your business card, you gave out your contact info, and they need what you have. How huge that's going to be for your business, right? You can start getting some sales, you can start getting some revenue in the door. So start there, right? Start there first. And it's funny coming from the digital marketing company.
Well, I told my lead sales guy, who's like my third in command, who I'm trying to teach. I'm like, hey, you want to go to the Chamber of Commerce yearly dinner with me? And he's like, why? And I'm like, oh, you little young Wittapon. I was like, I have so much to teach you. And dude, I met a guy who's building a 30,000 square foot factory. Sat at my table. We're probably going to do his work along. He knows everybody in town. That led to 3 other meetings with the 3 wealthiest people in town from a $50 price ticket. And, it's like I've always found myself, especially as we get more digital and more social media, I tend to live by the creed, go the opposite direction that people are running to. Don't get me wrong. I'm still on Twitter. I still have a podcast. But I like hand marketing. I like I'm going to speak at the Votech school. I'm going down to meet the teachers. I stop in at local businesses. I eat at different restaurants. Hey, how are you doing? Is there anything we can do for you? Like, yeah, you might not see a huge ROI, but when it is time, they're going to know that you were the guy that was there and you're always checking in on them. And a lot of business owners are so in their business that they're not even looking at doing that. Oh, well, forget, and unfortunately, the rise of COVID really gave people a false sense of what actual business is. One of my favorite comments I ever heard, like over the last 6 months, was they asked the guy who owned a big sales organization how he felt about the economy shifting. And he goes, I did a company-wide email and I said, welcome back. You actually have to be salesmen now. I'm very excited for this time. And I think a lot of business owners got a lot of business, especially in the trade space that I'm in. We're busier than ever. And they kind of, some of them are resting on their laurels. Like brand building isn't day in, day out, no matter how busy you are, every day.
Yep. It's so true. And you can learn a lot about that from studying the past, right? One of the biggest reasons why I developed that thought process was talking to one of my mentors who's been able to be a successful entrepreneur for decades, right? Before all these tools were at our disposal, right? And one of the things he said is like, really a lot of the investment opportunities and the people he's done business with and a lot of his success in being an entrepreneur was built on showing up at as many places as possible, as often as possible, being one of the first people there and being one of the last people to leave. And then eventually people are like, hey, I've seen you here before, or, hey, I saw you cleaning up the other night, or, and you start to build these relationships, right? Because before I worked at the digital marketing agency, I worked at 2 other organizations who were being forced to adapt to the digital world, right? It was, the recession came around in 2008, 2009, right? And a lot of people were searching on ways to find savings in their business. And, the marketing landscape prior to a lot of these tools was much more expensive than it is today, right? So your options were really the networking piece, or you could go out and you could buy a billboard, you could run a commercial, I worked for Thrive, which is now it's a small business platform and digital marketing company. But what that company used to be was Dex for the yellow pages, right? And I remember meeting with businesses that would spend tens of thousands of dollars a month just to have a big yellow page ad, and now you can invest a fraction of that to use these tools and to be consistent in your digital marketing strategy. So study the past a little bit, kind of see how things have changed, and the fact that like this digital world is actually a luxury for business owners. It's never been easier to try to get the word out there about your business than it is now, right? So just understanding that and then realizing that if you can invest in that opportunity, take advantage of it, it becomes a huge asset for your business. It really, really does. And it's even like, if you ever try to sell a business or buy a business, that's some of the things that they look at, right? Like if you have a solid social media following and consistent traffic to your website, your business is more valuable.
100%.
Right?
Well, one of the greatest things I ever heard, I've used it like 70 times because I heard it's so good. This guy was a plumber. I forgot where he was, but he did his billboard upside down on purpose. And he said he made $500,000 from that because people would call and go, "Oh, do you know your billboard's upside down?" He goes, "Oh, no kidding. They must have messed it up. Do you need any plumbing services?" And it's like, for me, I'm in a small town. Like we just approved and went on the radio, right? If I was in a major metropolitan, you'd be like, "Dude, the radio don't work." I was like, even I told the woman, "I haven't listened to the radio in 20 years. She goes, "Well, they listen here." And she goes, and so you have to, you can't just go with what you know. You have to look at the data. One of my favorite books in the entire world is Good to Great by Jim Collins. I think it's one of the best business books ever written. And he talks about radical honesty. As a business owner, looking and say, "You know what, man, maybe I don't understand this stuff, but maybe I need to hire somebody that does." Now, here's my problem, though. And I'm sure you get this a million times too, though. There's a lot of shysters out there in your space. I'm a coach as well. There's a lot of shysters in my space. I have to fight through that. I've been taken, for thousands of dollars by marketers who didn't do anything. I've learned my lesson multiple times, right? So I'm very cognizant about this. How does one who's looking as a business owner or a personal brand, how do they determine what is a good agency and what isn't a good agency? And how do you know these days?
Yeah, it's a great question. I have that conversation often too. And the best advice that I can give business owners when they're looking for digital marketing companies, or they've experienced something bad in working with somebody before, pay attention, learn, right? There's definitely things to look for. And one of the biggest things to look for is how much do they know about some of those experiences, right? If you're talking to somebody or you're looking for that service, ask them questions about the industry. And if they're willing to be honest, then you might have found something that you should consider. Because if you've been in the industry a long time, you know about those things, right? You've experienced it. You've been forced to sell it before, right? And you know about it. And that's one of the things that I really feel like has gone well for us. That's really important is I never honestly thought I would start a digital marketing company. But one of the reasons I did was because when people started reaching out, asking if we could help, I wanted to actually help them overcome some of those shisty, sketchy kinds of situations because they don't know a lot of the time, right? And so things that I've already kind of touched on a little bit, like you should own your data and assets.
Mhm.
That's the type of thing you should listen for. And if any businesses listen to this podcast and you're sitting there and you're thinking about the same thing of like, I know I need to do digital marketing, or I've had this bad experience working with a digital marketing company before, that should be one of the very first things that you ask is, do I own everything? Is this my data? Is this my website? Right? Because if somebody is really wanting to do this in the right way, in an ethical way, and truly wants to help you, they're going to make sure that you own those things, right? Because you should never allow somebody to own your data, should own your assets, anything like that, because that's like you invest way too much into digital marketing and your business and stuff to have to start over every couple years or something like that with your data and your assets and stuff like that. It's just it's
I
so important.
I want to paint a picture for anybody listening that can understand what I'm about to say, and I'll use my business as a real-time example. So
Mhm.
at the moment, we don't offer duct cleaning services. We don't
Mhm.
offer it. It just so happens that my lead sales guy owned a business for 20 years that he's been doing on the side from time to time. He's ready to retire. He would just
Mhm.
shut the business down. He only works it when he feels like it. He get leads every week they call. He's never advertised. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I own an HVAC company. That's super easy for me to install that in as a service, buy his company, and now turn around and refarm my 8,000 customer list of commercial and residential clients that I've served in the last 5 years to offer this as a service and attach it to my maintenance agreement. Now, why is this business so attractive to me? Because I already have a client base that we've serviced for 25 years. But the only reason why we can do that is because I had to make my sales guy go through, because we don't have a CRM, and pull up all of our clients for the last 5 years. But if I had a CRM, it'd be as quick as a boom, boom, click, send them an email. We offer this now. That's what people need to be thinking about. Like, you might have a business in your vertical, but that customer list is gold, right?
Mhm.
And then so you might not have to really do anything extra besides do what you already do, but now you've created, I think that we're going to do, in my personal opinion, almost $250,000 off that business in the first year, but we're not even counting the money that we're going to sell as a cross sell to replacement units because we're in their house for the duct cleaning. So that's the way I look at business, is like, that's just another vertical within the line of services that we can create that. And that's what a digital presence really creates for you, is to bolt on those services and then push forward.
Yeah, absolutely. You're 100% right. Um, it's one of those things where if you are in a position where you're like, hey, how are you going to generate me an ROI?
Mhm.
There's the key to an ROI is data,
Yes. Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
Because that the data is what allows you to calculate, right? And to make adjustments and to improve in order to grow that ROI, right? And so if you have to start over in data collection every
Mhm.
time that you go into a new relationship, or you start a new digital marketing strategy, or you hire somebody to help you with digital marketing, then they're put in a position where their back's up against the wall and they're like, well, the first thing we need is data.
Yeah. There's a plumber business that we put an offer on. They got 3 of their offers. We didn't get it. Didn't matter. I didn't really want it. But they had 60,000 customers in their
Mhm.
data bank, in their CRM.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, we almost valued the business more for just to be able to take that customer list, and they didn't have HVAC. We were going to add on HVAC. Then what was the ROI? And I think, I want to say my COO said that it was like $250 a customer was the traditional, like, what it would cost to get a new customer or something like that. So boom, there's the value of that list right there, right? And so, you know, if if they're not, let's say they're not in a place as a business owner where they could hire your company just yet, should they pick one platform to go on and just own that? Should they find out, like, that's what people don't understand. Each platform has its own audience, different audience, right? You know, what's your suggestion for them getting started?
Yeah, so I would focus outside of the initial kind of bootstrap approach I was talking about. Refine your brand. So I would definitely make a huge effort in understanding who you are to people and what problems you're solving. And what we tend to do is we put somebody through an exercise that we do, which determines what your brand persona is and who your client profile is, who your ideal client profile is. Because it's going to be really important to understand that when people see you, that it's not just about what you do. A lot of businesses tend to approach their content and in everything, their any sort of advertisements or anything that they do around how can I tell people who I am and what I do. But what you should really be thinking about is who is the customer and what problems do you solve for them, so that they can identify the fact that I'm that person, I have these problems, they're going to solve these problems for me, right? So focusing a lot on that's going to be really important, and that'll allow you to evolve your branding from like a logo standpoint and a website standpoint, and how you create social media content and everything. It really kind of trickles off of that. So that's one of the things that like I would really take some intentional time in devoting yourself into understanding that more, so that you can build your business around the customer rather than yourself. So that's one thing. And then when you start to think about the next steps of like, okay, so website, if you have a service-based business, you should be thinking WordPress for website, right? And there's a big reason for that. One of the biggest reasons is you can actually own it, right? It's easy to own that platform. It's an open source thing. You can build a WordPress site on a lot of different things, but at least it's yours. It's easy to export and migrate or redesign or anything like that with WordPress, because there's so many different options with that. So that's what we'd always recommend for a service-based business, is that the majority of all websites on the internet are WordPress websites. And there's a reason for that. It's been around for a really long time. It's a platform that's always evolving and growing with the times. They put in tools that make it so that it functions very similar to like your Squarespace and your Wix and stuff like that too, to make it easier to edit. So you immediately address that problem. It's customizable. You can actually get into the code and you can customize the website and stuff. It's more secure. There's tons of benefits with going that route. And then when you start to think about dispersing your content, so like your social strategy and things like that, what you're really going to want to do is you're going to want to determine, does your business fit in a certain platform, right? If you're B2B, you really got to be thinking LinkedIn, right? If you're B2C, there's still a huge audience on Facebook, right? Even though I feel like Facebook is starting to slow their dominance a little bit in that route, it's still the highest used platform. And it's also community based too. That's what we've started to notice about Facebook, is it's pretty community based. There's a lot of opportunities with networking within inside like local city groups and different things that you can use to get your message out to selected groups easier. And then, building off of that, your Instagram, your TikTok, each platform has its own benefits to it, but you probably want to pick like 3 primary ones to start. That's usually where we start. You don't want to spread yourself too thin and be like, I'm going to hit everything as much as possible. I would really try to consolidate that into probably 3 platforms to start, just depending on what kind of business you have.
I love that. So if people want to find out more about you and your company, where would they go?
Yeah, you can go to imprint-digital.com. That's our website. You can fill out a form, give us a call. We're happy to help answer questions you have. I'm really active on LinkedIn. You can find me at Alex Wells on LinkedIn. And then our company's all over social media. So we have Imprint Digital on LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. You can always interact with us there. Each platform we kind of approach a little bit different, but our focus really is educational resources, culture, and just really trying to paint the picture of here we have the knowledge, we're here to help, but we're also people. We like what we do, we have a good time doing it, and by doing that, I think you would have a good time working with us as well, because we're approachable, we're eager, we're motivated, and we're the type of people that you would genuinely enjoy having a conversation with, taking out to lunch, and actually spending some time with off the clock.
My CFO said he has two rules in business when I first met him. He goes,
Yeah.
if I had to ride in the car with the person for 8 hours,
Mhm.
I would do business. That would be my client or customer. And then he goes, if he texted me on a Saturday, would I be upset? And I was like,
Right.
I love those two things. Those are amazing. I was like, that's an easy barometer, you know?
Yeah.
So man, thank you so much, man. I'm excited for people to hear this and understand that I truly believe that marketing is a way to extend your business and create something special. So if you got some value from this episode, send it to a friend, and I'll see you next time.